Hello, Professor. It's Bryce Barnett. Right now, I'm in Lake Mary, Florida, so that's kind of close to you. I came home for Hurricane Matthew. I didn't know how bad it was going to be, so I wanted to be here with my mom in case it got really bad. And when I was down here, I noticed some very blatant, bad examples of landscaping and establishment techniques that we clearly talked about and are not good for the plants. And so here's the first one I want to talk about. So this palm tree was planted either Wednesday or Thursday of last week, right before the hurricane. I don't know why they didn't wait until after, and I don't know why either they decided to replace the palm tree that was here. But the main problems about this is how they went along with bracing it. You can clearly see there's no burlap wrap around to protect the trunk, or any clasp to hold the battens in place. Along with that, they nailed straight into the trunk of the tree, which isn't smart at all, which will damage the tree. And then they didn't take the time for this one over here to get a longer one, so to be more geometrically symmetrical for a triangle, because the ground sloped a little more over here. So they just threw it there. And the only reason it's standing right now is because this guy's wedged up against the brick wall. And something I noticed right before I started recording is that this support beam is not even in the ground at all. And it's doing nothing right now. It's resting against this bush. And you can see it's crooked. And right now it's not going to be very secure if it stays like this. So hopefully they'll come out and be able to fix it. So the second one has to do with staking. Along the way, there's the other one here. This one could be redone. You can see it's not even, this stake isn't even straight up, and as well it's not really in the ground at all. It's not even attached to anything. Well, that's something that needs to be fixed. The one I really wanted to show you is over here. I just saw it this morning. My mom tied some rope to it because it's very flimsy and she didn't want it falling over in the storm. And it's been here for a few months, so I was surprised on how loose this guy is for being in the ground for a while. And then I realized there's a metal stake going right smack dab in the middle of it, going all the way down into the root ball. My mom told me it came this way, and you can see how rusted it is. It's been like this for a while, and you can see the webbing. It's on there pretty tight, so it's been constrictive. And I bet this is the reason why this guy is so flimsy, because of that stake. I don't know how much more or what can be done about the stake, because of how it's all intertwined and basically now a part of the trunk of it, except for when other storms come on, to tie it like it has, like we did before. It was just tied to these palm trees right here. So that's it for Lake Mary. I was going to do a PowerPoint and narrate it, but I realized that all the photos I took did not have my Gear 1 in them, so I will be taking a video of all the problems there at my fraternity house at Alpha Gamma Rho. And next you'll see me in Gainesville. Hello, Bryce Barnett again here. Now I'm back up in Gainesville, and I'm at the Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity house where I live. And like I said earlier, I went ahead and found all the plants that have problems or examples that we talked about in class. And the first one I'm going to talk about is this one right here. Before, all these curling leaves was still on it. So it looked like a better example to talk about. It's a sign that the plant has not been established yet and needs a lot of water. It's been here for a while. The dirt is also very dry, and this pot is undercover, so it doesn't get any real rain unless it's a strong storm and it's coming in sideways. It needs more and better maintenance mostly watering and less cigarette butts and treating this like an ashtray. Alrighty, now we're out here in the front lawn and we're going to talk about this magnolia tree. So besides it being ugly, one of the brothers decided to prune it and trim a lot of it off. I've been told that's a bad idea and you should never do that for magnolias. But what I wanted to talk about was the fact that the mulch circle is too small for the size trunk of this tree. Working with the rule from lecture, there should be 2-foot diameter of mulch for every inch of trunk diameter. This trunk could probably go another foot or so. And also you can see that the mulch is thinning out. We use a degradable mulch here, so we can add more of that as on top of making the circle bigger to stop weed. And it looks like some grass is actually growing through where the mulch used to be. To fix the problem, we'd rip up the grass and fill the gap with more mulch. We have a push mower, so that would help with protecting the roots system more. Walking over from the magnolia tree, this is our biggest bed that we have here. We need more mulch here. There's a lot of weed and vegetation growing through and poking out through the mulch, and this is after weeding, so we definitely need some more. We use degradable mulch here. We need to get it up to the thickness rule of 2 to 4 inches, probably more on the 4 inches side, if not maybe a little more, because the weeds here are pretty vicious and they grow very rapidly. Another problem here in this bed is that this plant right here, you can see that the mulch thickness stays the same all the way up to the base of the trunk and on top of the root ball. It can easily be fixed by moving and thinning out the mulch around the base of the tree. And the mulch is bad for the root system and can stop water penetrating the ground, make sure that the tree gets enough nutrients and water. Over here, this will eventually be a garden. What happened was we were building it and then we were waiting to get topsoil and we haven't gotten it, and then this was about a month ago. We built the border on the outside and it rained. A few days after, we cleared it all out, and then all these weeds popped up basically in a few days after the rain. To fix the problem, we would weed all the weeds and then add topsoil and go back to getting the garden up and running. I believe the best bet would be to do it by hand. Not only is it cheap, but also by pulling them out by hand and then bagging them and throwing them away, and compared to using a tilling machine, is that we would remove all the weeds and it would take longer for more weeds in the future to come back. Now I'm going to talk about the lawn. So the lawn right now is in better shape than how it is sometimes. It is quite patchy, however. We walk a lot on it, like I'm doing right now, because we hang out here on the lawn, and sometimes we'll bring the couches out from inside and we'll have a tub day. So we have a tub I'll show you later on the side of the house. We bring it out here and rest on the ground, and we'll forget about it for a few days, and that will make a big circle of dead grass. And when it gets that bad, what we'll do is we'll buy a bag of grass seeds. We go with seeding because it is the cheapest method, and we don't have too much money here at AGR. It still works. We've had plenty of dead circles here, and the seeds work fine for us. We had another plant here, and this one is full of a few examples. First off, talk about staking. Whoever staked this clearly did not care. The stake isn't even in the ground, and right now it serves no purpose at all to help this plant. And you can see by how tightly this webbing was tied to the stake that it must have been put right in or very close to the root ball, which is bad for establishment and will hurt the roots. Another problem with this plant is that it wasn't pruned. And as you can see, the third problem is that the mulch is too high and it's kind of almost choking the plant with how thick that is. But going back to the second problem with pruning, you can see we have two suckers right here poking out of the base of the plant. They should have been cut off when it was planted. I would cut them off to help with the nutrient supply going to the main stem. And you can see it's not looking too good of condition right now. And I believe that along with moving of the mulch and restaking will help make this plant grow a lot better and thrive in the future. Alright, now we're going to be walking out here into the alleyway. And before I talk about a problem, this is the tub that I was talking about earlier that we put out onto the lawn. So here we have a problem with drainage when it rains. You can see here we took a table from inside and we used it as a dike up against the wall to help prevent water from going in here and into the house. We also had sandbags for Hurricane Matthew that came through. The ground, it's not too compact near the surface. We do have some weeds growing in and some grass, but it usually will pool up here. This is pretty new. Extension to the drainage for the water. It looks almost like a French drain. Maybe if it was a little deeper. That's mostly for water that comes up from the gutter system. We could turn this and additionally turn it into a French drain or a drainage swell. Also, what we could do is, as long as there's nothing underneath, do some vertical mulching, drill holes, and then put mulch into those holes. I believe a combination of those, or even just one, would help tremendously with the water buildup. Leaving the alley, here we used to have a lot of degradable mulch on the ground, and we had big bushes going all the way up halfway through the second floor. We ripped them out, and we're planning to put scooter parking here to make space in the parking lot. And we're waiting to get money to buy the gravel. And in the meantime, we ripped them out back in August, and now you can see all the weeds growing up. By adding all the non-degradable mulch, which is the gravel, and along with the compaction from scooters and more people walking here, that'll help stop and limit weed growth in this area. Walking across the parking lot here to a little section that doesn't have any pavement on the ground is a great example of compaction from vehicles as long as people walking here with non-degradable mulch. Here we use some gravel, and this worked pretty well with stopping weed growth. Walking over from that part of the parking lot over there, we have this tree. Been here for quite a while, as we can see by the growth and how big the trunk is. Some problems that I see is the road cut right here with the roots going underneath can hurt the root system, as well as the building being so close. I could see problems possibly in the foundation. I don't know how long the building's been there, but it has been there for a while, and so far I don't think there's been any problems. A key problem, as we can see, is vehicles that come and park on this side of the tree and this side, and they'll come up close and try not block this roadway right here, but they'll get up onto the root system and on top of the root ball. That's not good for the tree and for the exposed roots. Can cause damage. So far doesn't look too bad, but this compaction is another element that could add to inhibiting growth in the future. But to prevent this, we could mark off on the ground to limit the parking space, because there's still room behind it where vehicles can park, and then we can park and then leave the root system alone to protect the tree longer. Over here is another section of the parking lot where we have another great example of compaction with gravel together to prevent growth coming through. There is some grass around this light pole right here, but then again, we don't have vehicles coming up here, and not too much. There's some foot traffic, but not as much as in these main sections where we parked all the vehicles. Downside, just like with over there, is that when it rains, it'll puddle up here and it'll flow down towards the street and into the gutter and then to the sewer from there. Walking over from that side of the parking lot, we have a fire pit here, and with the fire pit we have non-degradable mulch, which are all these rocks. We could use some more because over time people kick and throw them, and as you can see, it's thinning out in some areas, and now there are some weeds popping up, and also it looks better when it's a uniformity of rocks compared to patchiness like right here. It's funny because it's a form of degradability when you add humans into the element, because we're the ones that make it thin out compared to other natural reasons. To fix this problem with the weeds, we would add more rocks, and then also just tell everyone, all the brothers here, to not kick or throw the rocks. Okay, walking now to the south side of the house, to the final plant that I found, and this guy has a few problems in himself. I believe it is a lemon tree. So the first problem, when it was planted, there was more than 10% of the root ball above the ground. As you can see here, there's quite a few roots exposed and completely above the ground. Next time, more care needs to be taken when digging the hole, and need to remember that when you're planting plants, that it's easier to re-dig the hole deeper or add more soil to make it shallower when you're planting the plant before it gets any root establishment into the surrounding ground, because now I wouldn't touch it with trying to take it out and replant it. What could be done is add more topsoil around it. The second problem with this is another case of bad staking. Let me get a better view of it for you. You can see this stake here was put almost angled in towards the root ball, right in the center, which of course is a no-no. It's bad for establishment and hurts the plant. It should have been farther out in stable ground, so that can be an actually stabilizing it. Another problem or another issue with the stake is that we have two walls right here, which add a barrier from wind coming westward direction. So I would have put the stake around this side, so that wind's coming from this direction, it would actually hold it up and actually be doing something. As we can see now, there's nothing, no webbing or anything tying it on. It is getting a little big, especially by the base, so it would not need to be staked anymore. So that's probably, I don't know why. Maybe it fell off, or it was never actually staked properly to begin with. So we see all these weeds around the bottom of the plant. Of course, weeds are never good for plants that we want to keep and we want to grow, because they take away nutrients and water that the plant could be using. To help fight this, we could do a mulch circle around the base of the plant to prevent weeds from growing and to allow all this water and nutrients that the plant could be using to let it actually use them. Another idea is to build a well around. Over here it's not as sandy as some of the other parts of the house, so a well would hold up better compared to a sandier mixture, as we learned in class. With it being on the south side, the only shade it gets is in the early morning, a little bit in the late afternoon by this one tree, and then of course when it goes down behind this line of trees on the other side of the road. And I feel like that would have helped it get established better in the beginning, having a well here to help pool up the water. Probably look a little better if some of these ideas were used when it was first established. So these are some of the plants that I have found around the Alpha Gamma fraternity house where I live in Gainesville, as well as back home in Lake Mary. I've learned a lot already from this class, and when I drive down the road or walk anywhere, I'm always looking at plants now to see if any of the concept I learned in class is being applied to, and I ask myself, is this plant, has it been established correctly, or what problems can I find myself? And I'll be using this definitely in the future when I get my own place, my own property.